Colorado is a really interesting team to look out for in week 1 because you really don't know what to expect. They're a 20.5-point underdog going into this TCU game. And for some reason, people are kind of treating TCU like they're Alabama, Georgia, or Ohio State just because they went to the national championship last year. Here's the thing. Colorado has some really talented players. You got Deion Sanders. He was probably the best quarterback in FCS last year. Just because he's going from Jackson State to Colorado and he's going to be playing in tougher competition doesn't mean he's going to forget how to play football. Deion Sanders is a really talented quarterback. He has a really good arm, really good accuracy. He's a damn good athlete. And this offensive line is not small. People keep telling me, man, Colorado's offensive line is really small. They're not going to be able to handle themselves up front against better competition. Their whole entire offensive line is nearly like 300 plus or bigger. Their starting center was Pro Football Focus first team selection at center. I mean, this offensive line has enough talent that they should be able to handle themselves pretty well up against TCU. TCU's defense has a lot of veterans on it. It is a really talented bunch. But offensively, they only returned 3 starters from last year's team. So they've been in the transfer portal pretty heavy as well. They're going to have a new quarterback in Chandler Morris. He was announced the starter around this time last year over Max Duggan, but he got injured and Max Duggan took over and he didn't look back. But we don't know how good Chandler Morris is going to be. They also got a new offensive coordinator. They lost Garrett Riley. They're going to be bringing in Art Briles, who is a pretty good offensive coordinator, but with them having so many new faces on offense, they're going to have to get acclimated to the way he wants to call plays. I think that Colorado offensively has an advantage over TCU because when you look at Deion Sanders, he's a better, more proven, established quarterback than what Chandler Morris is. And in college football, if you got an elite quarterback, there's not a single game that you shouldn't be able to win or at least be able to stay competitive in. They're a 20.5-point underdog against TCU. I'm really surprised that the point spread is so large in this game because I really don't think that TCU is all that better of a team from a talent standpoint than what Colorado is. Y'all treating Colorado like they bums. They got playmakers on this team. They got Travis Hunter. This man was the #1 recruit coming out of his recruiting class. He's a dominant player. He can play both sides of the ball really well. He's a great route runner as a wide receiver. He's really fluent getting in and out of his breaks, and he's really fluent as a corner too. You got a shutdown corner and a fantastic wideout. He's going to be playing both sides of the ball. He's going to have a huge impact on this game. You got a really deep group at wide receiver. You have Jimmy Horn Jr., who is a preseason first team Pac-12 returner or second team, I believe. Not just is he a good returner, but he also is really good in the open field. You give him the ball in space on reverses, jet sweeps, bubble screens. He can take that shit to the house. This is a really talented team that Colorado has. Do y'all know about Alton McCaskill, their RB1? Well, he didn't play last year for Houston because he suffered an injury, I believe, in the spring that kept him sidelined for all of 2022. But his true freshman season, he has 16 touchdowns. 16 as a true freshman. This dude is a monster. Y'all are not ready for Alton McCaskill. I'm trying to tell you people, man. Colorado is going to be able to give TCU a game. Now, I've picked Colorado to win this game. You feel me? Because they got a really good chance to do it. Even though they are playing on the road, TCU, they got a lot of things that they're trying to figure out. So is Colorado. But Colorado has a really good coaching staff. Deion Sanders is not this novice as a head coach. Okay, Deion Sanders has won games at Jackson State. Outside of his first season, he's been really good as a head coach. He also knows how to assemble a really good coaching staff. His offensive coordinator is Sean Lewis, previously the head coach at Kent State. You remember when Kent State took Georgia to the wire last season? Everybody was giving Sean Lewis props, even Kirby Smart. Even Georgia fans in the comment section. If you go and you watch Sean Lewis press conference and you look in the comments, even they acknowledge how good of a coach Sean Lewis is. He didn't even get fired from Kent State. He stepped down. He said, fuck it. I want to go ahead and be an offensive coordinator under Deion Sanders. Kent State had the best offense in college football a couple of years ago. Daniel Scott in the chat asked, is Shedeur better than Chandler Morris? Absolutely. Absolutely. When you have the quarterback advantage, you have a huge chance or a huge opportunity to pull off a massive upset like what Colorado could pull off this Saturday. Shedeur Sanders is a really good quarterback. It really bamboozles me how people make it seem like just because he's going from FCS to Power 5, he's going to struggle. There's been plenty of quarterbacks who've been able to be successful having to step up in competition, transferring from a FCS school. Y'all pay attention to the Pac-12. I know that shit's about to die out and go extinct. But if you pay attention to Washington State, they got a really good quarterback named Cameron Ward. He played for a school called Incarnate World a couple of years back, and he was one of the best quarterbacks in the FCS. And then he followed his head coach to Washington State, who was his offensive coordinator, and he was one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12 last season. You remember Vernon Adams? That's a throwback name, but he played for Washington State, led them to an upset over Oregon State years ago, where Oregon State was ranked, and they were like the first FCS school to pull that off. He was the quarterback of that team. He transferred to Oregon, and he was pretty solid. Shedeur Sanders is not going to be a bad quarterback for Colorado. I don't get how people trying to make it seem like Colorado doesn't have talent. They got game changers. They may not have elite depth, but they got way too many game changers for this game to be a blowout. They got the number one cornerback coming out of high school last year, and Cormani McClain, who Deion flipped. Cormani McClain, Travis Hunter, I like that quarterback duo better than anything that TCU has. And TCU has a really good secondary. I don't mean that to be disrespectful to TCU. I'm not trying to crap on the Horned Frogs, but what I'm trying to make you guys realize is that the talent discrepancy in this game is not as big as what you think. TCU is not as good as a team as what they were last year. They had a lot of seniors on that team. They had a lot of veterans. Hell, most of their team from last season is in the NFL now. TCU isn't one of those programs that just reloads every year like Alabama, Ohio State, or Georgia. They got to retool. They have to hit the transfer portal pretty heavy also. You don't know if everybody from the transfer portal is going to work out. You can say the same thing for Colorado, but most of these guys have already been proven. Jimmy Horn Jr. was a all-conference selection when he was playing that USF. Same thing with Xavier Weaver or Xavier Weaves. He was a second-team all-AAC selection at wide receiver. So you get two really good USF transfers at wide receiver. Colorado has a better team than what people are giving them credit for. You know, ESPN only thinks that Colorado has like an 8% chance to win this game. Let me show you guys this. This is incredibly crazy to me, right? So you go to this ESPN. So this ESPN little predictor thing, right? They got a little tool that tells you the probability or the chances that a team has of winning the game. And, you know, they are incredibly disrespectful to Colorado and the Buffs. Look at this. Can you believe this? Can you believe that Colorado only has an 8.2% chance to beat TCU according to ESPN's matchup predictor? They think that TCU is just this good of a team? 91.8% chance? when Colorado has the better quarterback? I'm trying to tell you people, man. Colorado is going to surprise y'all. I would not be surprised if Colorado wins this game. This is a game that should not be a blowout. This should be a competitive game. I don't think that Colorado should go into this game and not cover that 20.5. They should at least be able to keep this game within 2 touchdowns. TCU, they got a lot of new faces on their offense. Their defense is really good, but Colorado's going to have a really good offense. Colorado's offensive line has plenty of size. They do not have a small offensive line. Their defensive line is a concern. And TCU, if they can figure out their offensive line, it could be a big mismatch that they could exploit. TCU is a really physical team. They were a really good team when it came to running the football up the middle last season. And if Colorado's defensive line isn't up to snuff, at least on the interior, they're going to have a hard time stopping the run game that TCU could have this year. But I think that a lot of people are massively underrating Deion Sanders and the Buffs going into this game. You don't got to believe that Colorado's going to be able to win this game because it is hard to win on the road in college football. But there are other factors that play to Colorado's advantage. TCU is going into week 1. They're a team that's a favorite, a huge favorite, and they could come out a little rusty. The best time to pull off upset in week 1 against a team that could be marginally better than you is to be able to get them in a week 1 situation where maybe they come out a little bit rusty. Colorado is not going to get blown out. Their offense has plenty of talent to put points up on TCU's defense, even though TCU has a really good defense. And their secondary is really good. I don't know about TCU's wide receivers. They may have some talent there, but I don't think they are incredibly deep at that position. I think that it's fair to say Colorado has a better group of receivers than what TCU has. Deion Sanders, at least when it comes to skill position, I think that Colorado has some really top-tier talent at defensive back, wide receiver, and running back. They may not be incredibly deep at offensive line and on the defensive line, but they got athletes there. I'll be surprised if Colorado doesn't keep this game at least within 10 points. Y'all sleeping on the Buffs. Y'all really are.